Hello, friends. You are not broken. You are disconnected. I have notes. That's why I'm referring. This all just downloaded to me a few minutes ago. You're not broken. There's nothing that needs to be fixed within you. You are just existing in two different places right now. Well, maybe more, but essentially you're existing in that old persona, that old identity that you created as a younger person. And I'm talking to the midlife women here. You created this persona, this identity based on your experience up until that time in your 20s and 30s. And then all the other things came into play. You've always been a daughter. You've probably always had some definition of employee, whether that's a manager, whatever your title is. And then in your 20s and 30s, spouse, partner comes into play, perhaps mother comes into play. And in your midlife, menopause comes into play. So everything is completely disrupted. There's your sense of self, there's all of the hats that you're wearing, and you're constantly, especially of all of these aspects in your life. Some of you just have of a couple of them. Maybe you're single, so you have work and we all have parents, and that shifts as they age and as they pass on. But we define ourselves in that 20 and 30-year-old zone when we have more time. Then we start putting on the hats as we evolve through those years. And we've got this identity that has all of this experience of the 30s, 40s, 50s into your 60s. And we're still clinging to that identity that we formed back there. But we're over here now. And because we've been flipping all the hats and changing all the hats and being pulled all the different ways, you don't consciously upgrade that identity as you move through all this experience, all this wisdom, all of this knowledge that you gain as you age. And suddenly you're sitting, or seemingly suddenly you're sitting in your 40s, 50s, even 60s, going, what happened? Because you still have that definition of yourself back here from your 20s, your 30s. And now you're sitting over here in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, completely lost because you haven't upgraded. You're still this person, but with all of this wisdom, knowledge, and experience that you've gained along the way, you haven't upgraded her to where you find yourself now in midlife, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So you're lost, you're confused, you're overwhelmed, you are stressed out, you feel disjointed with all the aspects, you're just flipping hats. And there's so much disconnection from yourself because you have that identity that you formed back then that has not been upgraded. You're still her, but it's been upgraded with all of the knowledge, wisdom, and experience that you've gained up to this point. So you're sitting here, especially with the stuff that's happening internally with your whole expansion into perimenopause and menopause. You're sitting here completely discombobulated, disrupted, overall confusion, because you have all of these different inputs that you're experiencing as daughter, as mother, as spouse or partner, if you have a spouse or partner, as employee, or whatever your work situation is, and self, which is the last one as women that we usually go to. So we lose her. We're disconnected from her because she was this and we left her there. That's who we are. And we left her back there in our 20s and 30s. And all of this other stuff happened, but we didn't bring her with us to experience and grow. Most of us didn't, some of us did, You didn't have the time because you were wearing all the hats, going through all this stuff. So you didn't bring her with you and evolve her to where you are now based on all of those things that have happened to you and for you, from you, with you, whatever you want to say. All of these things have happened for you to expand you to this higher level of identity. It's more expansive because you can't stay in the box if you have all of this experience, wisdom, and knowledge, but you don't bring her with you and upgrade her. In your 20s and 30s, you might have your identity volume 1. In your 40s, it's volume 2, maybe even 3. There's a lot going on there. And then your 50s, it's 4 or 5, 6. In your 60s, it's another jump. But we don't upgrade. So you sit in your midlife completely overwhelmed because you don't have a connection to yourself. You've lost her. You're trying to fit this box of midlife existence in your 40s, 50s, and 60s into who you identified yourself as in your 20s and 30s. You're not the same. You may have had children. You may have gone through various life-altering moments. You've probably experienced grief at this point with friends and family or parents, grandparents, whatever it is that you don't necessarily experience in your 20s and 30s. That changes you. But if you're still trying to fit into that identity that you created back then and have not upgraded her and adjusted her and expanded her to who you are now, you're going to feel very confined. You're going to feel very unsettled because you don't know who you are anymore. Because you are not her any longer. You are her expanded. There's aspects of her, but there's so much more that needs to be expanded for her to find her and you at the same place now in midlife. So if you're overwhelmed, if you're wearing all the hats and keep switching them and feel pulled in a million directions, it's because you've lost your sense of self. As women, especially, because all of these things don't happen. Oh, I'll deal with that now, and I'll deal with that now, and then I'll deal with that. They all come tumbling down at the same time. If you have all of these aspects, or some of them, or most of them, they don't happen one after the other after the other. You don't get to pick and choose. They come down all at once on you, and you find yourself, your connection to you upgrading her to be okay where you are now, the last on the list. As women, we've been conditioned as people pleaser. We've been conditioned at all these things that we no longer are. It doesn't resonate. So in midlife, take a look at who you were, take a look at where you are now, and see what needs upgrading. That's what I have for you today.